trying to have a man and those who care for him fully understand what's going on with his prostate is really challenging because we're dealing with concepts and structures that people are not generally aware of. The other day, as I was cleaning up the house after the mass chaos that ensued from the children's visit, I was putting away the Play-Doh and it hit me. Play-Doh may be one of the best tools I have to explain what goes on and what concepts are necessary to understand as we're trying to contend with and promote bladder health, prostate health, and pelvic health in a man. So please, I invite you to go to our website or other areas where the full video is playing to use that to try to begin the process of understanding what it takes to accomplish proper pelvic health in a man. So continuing our theme of trying to make the body understood by the general principles that apply to everything around us, I looked around the house again, and this is going to be my next metaphor. So I'm going to take out my favorite wine carafe. Just as an aside, years and years ago we took a trip to Italy and we found ourselves on the Adriatic coastline in a very small neighborhood restaurant, and we had a beautiful lunch, and the owner was very, very good. The food was excellent, and I was just talking about how I enjoyed the wine, I enjoyed the carafes, and before we left he gave this to me. It was all cleaned and it was packaged up, and it made its way from Italy to the United States. So we will use that now to explain how the bladder and prostate works. So if we continue our metaphor, the wider area is what holds the fluid, and this is the bladder. And then this is the opening of the bladder neck, and then this will be the area that's going to represent the prostate. I'm going to cover that. And this is now completely solid, and this is going to represent the area that we call the external sphincter. In women, the muscles in this area are referred to as the Kegel muscles. But this is what the area that we have the ability to stop the urine when we volitionally want to, and that we have to relax in order to urinate. And just to make it even clearer, if we then add a tube, this now becomes the urethra, and then the tip becomes the tip of the penis. So what happens? As when we're young, born when everything functions the best, this whole area is the widest. That's why if you watch a child urinate who doesn't have problems, it's amazing. And if you think back on your younger years, of what it was then versus now, this is the reason. The area is wide open. As we get older, this area starts to fill in with the prostate. So using our Play-Doh, let's picture it like this. Make a little hole in the center. So when we're young and we have no problems urinating, we can picture the system kind of looking like this, which is that there is the bladder fills with urine. When it wants to let the urine go, it will come through a nice opening and then come out through the tip of the penis eventually. As we start to get older, though, this area starts to enlarge for many different reasons, which perhaps we'll talk about in future videos. But in the worst case scenario, we then get a system like this, completely plugged up. When we're in a situation where a man needs treatment because of this process, when you think about it, in order to get the best results possible, you want to go back in time as far back to when we had no problems, which was childhood and young men. So if I do something to make a small opening, then sure, we'll get flow that's better than when it was totally closed off, but it's still weak flow. Now we'll talk later about different scenarios, but that's not exactly how the body works, because the body is not a firm bladder, it actually is a muscle. So that when we try to expel the urine, the muscle is squeezing, and the narrower that hole, the more it has to squeeze. Over time, that fatigues the muscle, damages the muscle. But just conceptually, small hole, smaller flow, but better than when it was even narrower. Bigger opening, obviously, way better flow. So now, if we're going to consider a procedure or treatments, it makes total sense that if you're going to go through that, that you're going to want to get to this outcome more than the narrow outcomes. More than that, think about it. I'm trying to make this as smooth as possible because if you want the best flow, you want this smooth. What if I started to kind of do this so that I break it in half? There's a little hole here, there's a little hole here. You can imagine how that impacts the flow and how poorly the flow would be. That is going to be what happens with UroLift in the early months when it actually still is open and it works. After 6 months, this all closes off. But even in the best of scenario, it's very tenuous. If we make a much smaller opening, but irregular, it's going to do a better job, but that's going to be a minimally invasive procedure that will reflect more of what resumed steam therapy is. When we start to enlarge this and we start to get bigger openings, now we're getting into the world of green light laser transurethral resection of the prostate, holmium laser enucleation of the process of the prostate, and then ultimately my passion currently is the aquablation. All of these have the ability to open this hole. Some of them do it better than others, some of them have to be more aggressive than others, but in the end, this is all about making this area open again. We want it to be as open and smooth as possible. Why one versus the other? We'll talk about that on upcoming videos, and it's about what you have to go through, what potential complications are associated with it. But conceptually, you want a bigger opening to get the better flow, to get us back in time closer to when things worked the best.